What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. SEC Media Days is in full effect. There's plenty going on with Razorback basketball recruiting, Razorback football recruiting. We're going to get into all that and more. Your questions also on HawgSports Live. So SEC Media Days in full swing now. Greg Sankey was this morning. Dan Mullen is gone. They've got some more coaches today, obviously. Only LSU is Arkansas's only opponent. And I'm not there right now, obviously. I'll get there on Wednesday, doing it a little bit different this year just because Arkansas is on the last day with all the COVID protocols and things like that. Just figured I would go in for the one and a half day, I guess, of the event. But I will be there. I'm watching it right now. One of the key reasons why we had the new setup, I've got a monitor here, and then I got a 75-inch TV about 10 feet away from me. So who's got a better setup than that? I don't know. I haven't seen anybody. All right. It's just going to be me and you today, so go ahead and get your questions in, and we'll answer them. But I want to go over a few things first. All right. I'm not going to go over how to watch and all that stuff, but as you can see, it's our 50% off promo right now. We started just because SEC Media Days has kicked off. It's just kind of like it signifies that college football is right around the corner. And you know you're going to want HawgSports.com, the number one insider source on the Hogs for all your Razorback coverage, especially when fall camp gets here, because you're not going to be able to get enough of it. So sign up for 50% off. There's no promo code or anything. It breaks down to $1.03 a week, $4.48 a month, billed at just $53.70 for the entire year. There's no promo code or anything. Just go to HawgSports.com and you will see the offer right there. If you like what we do on this show, if you like what we do on Drive Time and Out of Bounds, everything else that we're on, all the free stuff that we put out, come see what we have behind the curtains. You're going to love it. The message board is worth the price of admission alone. Okay, enough of that. Appreciate everybody's support, by the way. So first things first, Darian Ford committed to Arkansas. Was that 5 days ago or so? Magnolia, Arkansas, we've known about him for a while. Number 50 ranked prospect in the entire class. Had a lot of different options and picked Arkansas, obviously. Arkansas has been pretty relentless recruiting him. He says he talks to him about every day. Number 9 combo guard in the country. Number 3 in Arkansas. Top 50 players, number 3 in Arkansas. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in-state class a little bit. But had Alabama, Auburn, Baylor, Florida. I could go on and on about him. But lefty, got to love a lefty. Cut up, good frame. Nice-looking addition. 6'4", 190-pound combo guard out of Magnolia. So Arkansas right now in basketball has Darian Ford, Barry Dunning, who's out of Mobile, Alabama, and Joseph Pinion, who's out of Morrilton. Dunning is the number 77 ranked player in the country. Pinion is number 122. Dunning's a 4-star, 6'6", 205. So what else is out there? Nick Smith, inside the state, number 27 ranked player in the country on 24/7 Sports. On the composite, on the top 24/7, which is the individual site ranking, Nick Smith is the number 20 ranked player in the entire country. It is a 5-star. Khalil Ware is the number 17 ranked player in the country and is a 5-star out of North Little Rock. So you got North Little Rock, Nick Smith out of Sylvan Hills, Ware 6'11", 210, Smith 6'4", 185, Darian Ford, who's committed to Arkansas, obviously, and Joseph Pinion. Those are your top 4 players inside the state of Arkansas who all have Arkansas offers. I mean, if they just get those guys, it's, an all-time great class, is it not? They rank number 3 right now nationally. But there's also guys like Kajani Wright, who ranks number 14 nationally, number 10 on 24/7 Sports. Out of California, who's visited Arkansas officially, 6'9", 235, power forward. There's Jordan Walsh, who can jump out of the gym. He can jump out of a skyscraper. 6'7", 190 pounds, number 56 ranked player in the country. Out of Southern California also. So Curtis has a nice breakdown. I'm not going to go into it specifically by detail. And by the way, Curtis Wilkerson is back. The last couple of nights have been his first nights in the state of Arkansas. He went on vacation. He's had a lot of family issues with his grandfather, and certainly that's been a tough in our sympathies with Curtis and his family. Khalil Ware, who we mentioned, Kajani Wright, who we mentioned, and Colin Smith, who's a 4-star, number 109 ranked player in the country out of Chandler, Arizona. Ernest Uda Jr., number 58 player in the country, 6'10 center. And Johan Traore, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, another California kid who's also a center, 6'10", and is a 4-star, number 69 ranked player in the country. So those are the front court guys that Curtis breaks down and goes into a lot of in-depth information on those guys. You will need a VIP membership, and you know how to get that for 50% off right now to read that. Curtis also, right when he got back, he put a bunch of, asked for a bunch of questions on there. He got so many questions, he had to break it into 2 stories. But he's got a recruiting mailbag and a question, a mailbag about the upcoming season. So 2 great articles by Curtis Wilkerson today, I guess. This one was 7 hours ago. This was July 18th, so that was yesterday at 12:01. So 2 nice articles there. CBS Sports released their new top 25 and 1 ranking, which is I don't know why they do an and 1. It's like, why do 26, or why not just call it 26? Why not just do 25? I don't know why they do top 25 and 1, but they've been doing it forever. But Arkansas actually fell a spot. I know, it's like, oh no, they fell a spot in this ranking. But they are number 9 right now, and the reason they fell is because Texas got a big commitment. Arkansas obviously didn't get Kevin O'Banner, who, the rumors were, and if you were paying attention to this show and HawgSports, that Texas Tech was the team to beat. Arkansas still had a puncher's chance at it from what we understood, but it was kind of Texas Tech from the get-go, which kind of made it interesting that there was a top 10 released and all that stuff when pretty much everybody was here in Texas Tech, with Arkansas still trying to get in there. But finished second. Arkansas is going to be all right. It would have been nice to have him. Obviously he's a really good player, but they did get Trey Wade, DC Toney, Stanley Amude, Chris Likes. And I'm leaving somebody out. I can't even remember. Jackson Robinson. Am I saying his name wrong? Anyway, they did pretty good in the transfer market. Now, flipping over to football recruiting real quick before we get into SEC Media Days. Patrick Kutas committed to Arkansas. He's going to play offensive line. He's listed as a defensive lineman. Number 21 ranked prospect in the state of Tennessee. Where is he nationally? Nationally, 621 national. Listed as a defensive lineman on here, number 91 defensive lineman. Now, again, 6'5", 285, going to play offensive line. This is a guy that had pretty substantial offer list also: Arkansas, Illinois, Oregon, Arizona State, Florida State, Indiana, Kansas, Louisville, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Virginia Tech. A nice offer list for Patrick Kutas, and that makes 4 offensive line commits in the class, and that is the minimum that Sam Pittman wants to bring in every single class. So off to a good start there. That's number 16. Number 16. Arkansas's class is ranked number 18 nationally, number 6 in the SEC right now. Miles Rouser still leading the way as the number 1 commitment in the class, number 168 overall recruit in the country. The offensive line is the best position that they've recruited so far. Amarian Harris, Andrew Chambly, Eli Henderson. So, good group. I did one last look at the Arkansas football season for 2020. Just did this the other day just because, we're about to turn the page officially, right? We are 3 weeks away from fall camp. From what I've been told, this hasn't been official, but the players are going to report on August 5th. I don't know where they're reporting from. Most of them are already there. Maybe they go home for a little bit. But they report August 5th, and then the first practice is August 6th, and that's 29 days, and then 30th day would be the upcoming season opener on September 4th against Rice. So we're inside of 7 weeks. It's not that much farther before college football takes hold. So exciting times coming right around the corner, and it'll be over before you know it. You know it will be. So I just kind of went over some of the wins to remember. Obviously, there was only 3 games. I feel pretty confident that Arkansas would have won 6 last year, and that includes the games they got screwed over in. But they would have won 6 last year with the 3 non-conference games that they didn't get to play. It was like Charleston Southern, Nevada, UL Monroe, I believe. So, that's not counting the losses where, you can literally, if you wanted to, blame the refs in all 3 of these. Now, people can say, there's a lot of different reasons, but, some of these came down to just some critical points. And, we'll start with, they lost 3 games by a total of 7 points, all on kicks. So they lost to Missouri, 50-48 as time expired. And KJ Jefferson had led them down the field. They scored a touchdown with 4:04 left, 2-point conversion to take a 2-point lead in the game, 50-48. Now, the thing that, where you'd say, what was this about? You guys remember Joe Fouché, the taunting penalty. He makes a play, brings up 3rd and long, 3rd and 12 or something like that, and he does this, crosses his arms, for a millisecond, at his own bench. There's not a Missouri player anywhere, but that apparently is taunting. And we're learning a lot about taunting now, because you can't do this if you're playing Texas in the face or anywhere near a Texas player. You can do it over to your fans, and that probably, as it was stated by the head of officials in the Big 12, that probably won't be a penalty. Probably. You got to love that language when you're talking about rules, right? Subjective, automatically subjective. But you can't throw the horns down at a player, so I'm sure Arkansas will be told that week 2 when they play Texas. Which, by the way, I don't know, so we post, it's interesting to me on this Facebook page, because we post information, and I think a lot of people think it's just me, but we have a national team that posts relevant information around college football. And anytime somebody posts something about another team, in college football, and they could be on Arkansas' schedule, people will be like, who cares? Nobody cares about that. I want to hear about Arkansas. So, you don't want to know about anything going on except for Arkansas? Just blinders, Arkansas only. I mean, I get it. We're going to put 80% of the content is going to be about Arkansas. But we had something about Texas the other day, because they had Big 12 media days, and, just about Sarkisian talking about the Texas quarterback battle, and this guy puts, who cares? Nobody cares. This Fox News, nobody cares thing rotating around. It's Arkansas's week 2 opponent. I don't understand that. Anyway, I digress. So, the thing that stunk about that thing with Joe Fouché getting called for that flag was Arkansas's defense should have come off the field after that. I mean, it was a 3rd and long, so I guess they could have converted it, but it was going to be tough. And Arkansas was forced to stay on the field, and then a few plays later, guess who injures his leg for the rest of the season? Grant Morgan. And would have never happened. The LSU game. Arkansas lost on a 44-yard field goal attempt that was blocked. They lost 27-24. I guess they would have just tied it. So this was a game where the second time that year, and we'll get to the number 1, but the second time that year, there was a fumble. LSU fumbled the ball. Joe Fouché recovered it from the get-go, the very beginning of this fumble. It was a pile. Comes up with the ball, has the ball. But it's ruled that there was not a clear and immediate recovery, as we are familiar with that language. And Arkansas wasn't granted the ball. And it wasn't at the end of the game or anything, but it was, I believe it was later on. And then there was also a ejection of Jalen Catalon, which should not have been an ejection. And that caused him to have to miss there was 6 minutes left in the game. And so he had to miss the first half of the Missouri game also. And then the Auburn game, which is very difficult to count as a loss. Bo Nix, everybody remembers, dropped the snap, picks it up off the ground, turns behind him, and throws it into the ground. It's a fumble. Arkansas aggressively trying to get the ball. Some Auburn players still too. But it wasn't an immediate recovery of the football. They blew the whistle dead, and so you have to have an immediate recovery of the football. Arkansas players aren't quitting trying to get to the football. I don't understand that. If people stop play, then they say, it's all right, it's dead. But they were still going. You're taught to continue going through on a play like that. Arkansas did everything they were supposed to do. They were punished. The SEC, that's one thing, I kind of regretted when I saw Sankey up there. And I don't remember seeing the head of officials up there, but I would have loved to have asked, could you please explain this? And in addition, can you explain why you gave Arkansas, who hadn't won an SEC game at the time in a couple of years, why you gave them Florida, why you gave them Georgia? Why'd you do that to him? Like, explain that. And I've heard like it's the only way it would have. No, it's not. It's not the only way it would have worked. It's the only way it would have worked without ticking off somebody like Alabama or something. So we're moving on, right? We're moving on. We got to get this stuff out of our system so we can move on. But only Georgia, Texas A&M, Florida, Alabama, I would say, beat Arkansas soundly last year. Texas A&M was still pretty close, and Arkansas played Georgia tough for about 36 minutes or so. Had the lead. So, yeah. But Alabama beat them pretty soundly. Florida beat them soundly. But people, I think, forget a lot. Like, Arkansas has a lot coming back from last year. A lot. 9 starters on offense, like 10 on defense. I mean, they got to get some things shored up on special teams, but I mean, they could have won 6 games last year. They could have won. And with the LSU game, I mean, they were ravaged on the defensive line. I mean, there were 2 of their top 3 defensive tackles were out, and all 4 of their top 4 ends were out of the game. I mean, that's tough to overcome. It's not going to be like that this year. You know, like there was one postponement for Arkansas. If you don't have enough players to play this year, you're going to forfeit. There's no rescheduling in 2021. The time for rescheduling was last year. According to Trey Schapp on 103.7 The Buzz, Arkansas is one of 6 teams that have reached 80% vaccination level, and that's kind of that's the ideal target number. You know, want at least 80%. And Greg Sankey today was, you know, kind of drove that point home. So there's only 6 teams in the SEC, and Arkansas is one of them, which is kind of weird because as a state we're under 40%. We're under 40%, which is we are as a state 48th behind. We're behind Mississippi and Alabama. We're 48th right now in percentage of people who've gotten vaccinated, and that's, you know, hey. That's your call. I'm done looking out. I mean, I don't want to sound callous about that at all, but I got vaccinated. I did everything CDC said. I stayed at home. I locked down for a year. I mean, I don't want to say it like I'm done looking out, but I'm moving on. And if you want to get vaccinated, I guess that's up to you. Stay home, whatever you want to do, I guess. But Arkansas is 48th right now. People do what they want to do, I guess. I didn't get on here to talk vaccinations and politics or things of that nature. So I know people make that political, and we stay away from politics, right? All right, postseason awards. Jalen Catalon was first-team All-SEC, AP, second-team All-SEC coaches, third-team All-America by Phil Steele and Football Writers Association of America, freshman All-America also by the, I guess, was that the Football Writers Association, excuse me. Football Writers Association just named him freshman All-America. He was the first freshman defensive back in the SEC since 2007 to register 95 tackles, make at least 3 interceptions. Grant Morgan, preseason All-SEC. Nobody had it. Nobody picked Grant Morgan preseason All-SEC. Ended first team by the SEC and the coaches. The first Arkansas defensive player to do that since Martrell Spate. He was a Walter Camp second-team All-America and AFCA second-team All-America. Third team by Phil Steele. He, along with Catalon, are on the Butkus Award watch list that was announced today, and Traylon Burks on the Maxwell Award watch list. So best defensive player, best overall player in college football for those 2 awards. Traylon Burks was a second-team All-SEC pick by the AP and the coaches after hauling in 51 catches for 820 yards, 16.1 yards per catch to go with 7 touchdowns. His 91.1 yards receiving per game are ranked third in the SEC. Really, he missed 3/4 of one game. He only played 9. If he'd have kept that 13-game pace, like that pace that he had, even with the missing that part of that game, if he'd had it over 13-game schedule, he would have finished with 1,184 yards, which would be second all-time in school history. He's getting a lot of attention heading into this year. I kind of thought Sam Pittman was going to bring Traylon Burks. I get why you want to bring Myron Cunningham, and Grant Morgan was an obvious selection. I'm not like saying he shouldn't have brought Myron. I just thought that Traylon Burks is a guy you bring to SEC Media Days. I think this is probably going to be his last year here. So, They were only able to bring 2. Maybe if they brought 3, maybe Burks would have been the other one. I kind of thought my favorites to go, unless Pittman, wanted to do all seniors, Grant Morgan, Traylon Burks, Jalen Catalon. And I probably would have had Myron Cunningham 4th. Where are we at? Talked about the vaccination rate. I don't think, people are like, yeah, if Alabama has to forfeit, they're going to figure out a way around it. But nobody's going to drop Alabama in the polls because they had to forfeit a game, or something like that. I thought this was kind of fun. Ranking SEC football media guide covers for 2021. Arkansas was 7th, so on the bottom end of the top half. I mean, it's a good media guide. It's Catalon, Burks, Morgan, Cunningham, 4 guys I just mentioned, as possibilities to come to SEC Media Days. It's nothing just like wow factor, I guess, but it's pretty good. It's a nice look. Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium beneath them. I mean, I don't know what Florida did that makes theirs any better. They just have 3 guys just kind of standing there posing. Like Arkansas is, they have their helmets on. South Carolina's 5. I don't know what's so special about that. I like Ole Miss's. Alabama's is all right. Missouri's is pretty good. Georgia's number 1. It's a guy holding a helmet. I don't know. We need football. These are the kind of top 10 lists we're doing right now. I mean, it's okay. I don't mean to hate on Brad Crawford. He does a great job. But all right. I'm going to switch you over to questions right now. But one more time, before I go to questions, 50% off right now at HawgSports.com. If you like the content that we produce, if you're into the free stuff that we put on Facebook or send in the newsletter or whatever, you like what I do on this show, you want to find a way to support, and people have asked before, like, hey, you have a Patreon, how can we support? Go to the website. Get a great deal on our VIP content at HawgSports. That's an easy answer. It's $1.03 a week. Breaks down to $1.03 a week. You're going to love it. We don't have a lot of people cancel. We always have a hard time trying to get people signed up, but once they do, they stick. It's kind of like, you didn't know what we had. So, sign up. You'll enjoy it. Promise. And if you don't, let's don't even talk about that because it ain't going to happen. All right. Randall Files says, Woo Pig Suey, what do we expect to learn from media days? Well, we learned that you forfeit if you don't have enough players to play. They still are going to kind of have those policies of how many players you need to play a game, at different position groups and stuff. But you're going to forfeit, so that's the main thing. And then, with Pittman, who knows? We've got a running list of questions that I should ask. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to get into questions and stuff. I know I'm going to do a walk and talk afterwards, so look forward to that on Thursday. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how. We usually get to do a breakout room interview, where it's just local media up in the suite. I don't know if we'll be able to do that. Players, aren't going behind the small podiums; they'll be behind the big stage. So all that stuff will be a little bit different. But I'm sure Sam will drop a nugget or two. You got to keep something. You got to hold something back. This is Pittman's first SEC Media Days, and Morris's, I just remember thinking, we heard all this before. I didn't know it was going to be like a precursor to how all of his press conferences were going to be, but Morris's SEC Media Day speech was almost his introduction speech. It's just one interview in a long line where he said very, very little. Nate Davis says, Woo Pig from San Diego is so excited about football. Me too. I can feel it. Alex Hamilton says, Paramount Plus makes everything worth it. It's my favorite streaming app, not to mention the great content. Now, I will say this about Paramount Plus. Now, Paramount Plus is free to subscribers. We have done things in the past where, people who are on a promotion get, a day or two, and we'll let you sign up for Paramount Plus for absolutely free, which is a $100 annual value. And you get that for the lifetime of your subscription. But right now, if you're on a promo, then you're not eligible for Paramount Plus also. Okay, so we do have another option where you can sign up for $1 for your first month, test it out. If you like it, then you pay regular price, and then you be eligible for Paramount Plus. But we have done things in the past. We don't have that going right now where, we say, okay, everybody can sign up right now for this, small window and get Paramount Plus also. And again, you get Paramount Plus. If you're not on another promo, you get Paramount Plus if you're subscribed to HawgSports for 10 years, you'll get it for 10 years. End up being like $1,000 value. Pretty good deal. Appreciate you noting that, Alex. Donnell Williams says, which player is more important to the success this year? I thought you were saying like discuss. To the success this year. I mean, Jalen Catalon is incredibly important. I mean, to me, he's the quarterback of the secondary. I mean, it's hard for me not to say Catalon, to be honest. And that's not a slight against Grant Morgan because he's extremely important also. And maybe that position group is a little thinner. So maybe you would say Grant, like him staying healthy, him being out there because, safety, if you have something happen at safety, you still got Joe Fouché, you still got Miles Slusher back there, So it might be Grant, just, when you factor in his importance to the team, obviously, which is extremely high. And just the depth at linebacker, some of the questions. Keith Boger says, really think Alabama or Georgia have to forfeit if they can't play? Yeah, but I mean, first of all, I don't think it's going to really come to that. Half the teams almost are at that 80% vaccination level. But if Alabama or Georgia has to forfeit, they're not going to fall in the poll. Nobody's being like, oh, they lost. Drop them 10 spots, so it's not going to happen. Where is the most important must-get for us in the state? He'd be a big one. Phil, on a lot of reasons. Philip Doolin says, what's up, Trey? You may address this before reading this, but if there are not any forward centers, be all. Yep, we talked about that. You may have to go back to the beginning of the show, Philip. Norman Hunt says, so many questions. One, after studying the schedule, will Arkansas fans be stoked as I would if Arkansas gets a 6-6 or 7-5 record in distance ball selection? I think so. I mean, from most of the people I've talked to, that's kind of like, there's a lot of let's get to a bowl game talk, this year. And to me, 6-6 is pretty equal to what they did last year. I think it's equal when you consider they should win 3 of those 4 non-conference games. Texas is in Fayetteville. We'll see on that. But those 3, I've said before, Arkansas is done losing to these cupcake teams. And you can't call them cupcakes. It's not fair because they come in there and beat your butt like some of them did. But I just think those days are through. And I think Arkansas would have beat those teams last year. I'm going to pause this because Ed Orgeron's coming up on the podium, and I want to see what he has to say. Arkansas's only opposing coach that goes today. Next question was, who's going to be the backup quarterback? I think it'll be Malik Hornsby. I think almost certainly it's going to be Malik Hornsby. Nate Davis says, we really going to see what we're about come that second game, horns down. Absolutely right. That's going to be a big indicator. There was an article about, biggest swing games for SEC teams, and Arkansas's was Auburn, which is a big game. But to me, that Texas game is just like, where are you at now? Where are you at? This is a Texas team with a brand new coach, new philosophy, new, all kinds of stuff. And a quarterback battle that's unsettled right now. Now, they've got 2, former 4-star recruits battling it out, but you never know at quarterback. So, Donnell Williams says KJ Jefferson will be a top 5 quarterback in the SEC. Save it. Nate Davis agrees. Jeremy Livingston says, for replying to Keith, people got their own conversation. Donnell Williams says, do we have a shot at the corner from Oklahoma? Gentry Williams, 5-star cornerback from Oklahoma who's visited Arkansas officially. Arkansas has been recruiting him a long time. Kewan Parker, who was a 2021 Arkansas commitment, is his former teammate. So they've got some connections. It's just when Oklahoma offers a guy inside the state, there's not many programs out there that can come and get him. Alabama's done it. USC, there's some crystal balls for him there. So it's going to be a battle for them to get. I mean, if they get him, that would be like one of the wow moments in Arkansas recruiting history. So I guess take that answer how you want. Kevin Carlos Canova says, "Go Hogs, my SEC team." Donnell Williams says, "Who will be the backup quarterback?" We talked about that, and I'll just go into a little more depth. I just think Malik Hornsby went throughout the spring as the starter, as the backup. I mean, he was. I don't think he ever came off the second team. So from everything I can tell, it's going to be him, unless like Cade Renfro comes in and just like stuns everybody, or maybe Lucas Coley. I mean, Lucas Coley, I think, has some positive. It's possible one of those two guys, but I really think it's going to be Malik Hornsby. Keith Bolger says Burks doesn't like the attention. Does he might have asked to let others go? I don't think Burks would have done that. I think Pittman wanted to bring a couple of seniors who both came back for their 6th year of eligibility. I think there are other ways to reward players for sticking around, but that's I think that's probably what went into it. I think in this day and age, you want to make sure you get as much exposure from just like the NIL standpoint stuff, although I think Burks is going to be rich one day soon. But I also think maybe it helps Myron Cunningham get on some SEC preseason lists. We fill out those preseason all-SEC teams, and I'll be honest with you, and I think a lot of other people do this, but like familiar names, like I'm not an absolute expert on Kentucky football. Now, I'm going to read up on them, and I've watched some of their games last year and stuff, but I'm not an expert. And to me, I think they're like, who does Kentucky bring to SEC Media Days? That guy's familiar. I remember him. Maybe I'll put him on the list. So I think that could have maybe bumped up Traylon Burks and Jalen Catalon, guys like that, a little bit. But maybe it gets Myron Cunningham on one of these lists. So maybe that was part of what went into it. Help him a little bit, because really, Catalon is a future draft pick. I don't know if Morgan is or not. I think he will be, but I think his size and all that kind of stuff will come into question a little bit. But Traylon Burks is a draft pick. Myron Cunningham, is he? Pretty close. So any exposure I think would probably help him. Maybe that's what Pittman's thinking. I can't fault him for that. Andrew Douglas Eford says, "What is our tight end situation? I feel that has been lacking lately." Well, you got Kern back and you got Henry back, and those are really the two guys that have any experience. I thought Blake Kern was an absolute must-get return guy for his 6th year of eligibility. Obviously he played pretty well last year. I thought he played really well, especially when, I don't think a whole lot was expected out of him. And he's trimmed down a little bit. And, Hudson has got to stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, then we're going to see him on some list, I think, coming up, and, talked about as an eventual draft pick. So, they need a guy like Hudson to really step up, just because, Mike Woods left. So they need somebody to fill in, and he can be that guy if he can stay healthy, but he's been hurt the last 2 years at different times. Arkansas will be a surprise team, says Christopher Paul. Which Christopher Paul is that? Is that linebacker Christopher Paul? Could be. Andrew Douglas Eford says RB, not QB. Who's the backup running back? Gotcha. So backup running back, that could change a lot during the season. I think right now, starting out, it'll be Dominic Johnson behind Traylon. And, I just think with TJ and Josh Oglesby, and it could be Oglesby too, but I just think, Oglesby I feel like is more of a situational guy. I don't know if you'd say something happened to Traylon, put Oglesby right in, but I think eventually you got to keep an eye on Raheem Sanders and A.J. Green. I think those two players are maybe the future at running back. So one of those guys, at least, I would expect to make a significant impact by the midpoint of this season. Norman Hunt says, "We watch it, Chick, Florida," says Woo Pig Suey. Quinn Martin says, "Bringing Cunningham probably helps push the idea that Pittman wants to bring our O-line to the forefront priority-wise." Probably a little bit. Christopher Paul says, I'm his dad. Gotcha. Well, we're looking for things out of Chris Paul. Freshman linebackers, it's kind of tough sometimes. But, he played pretty well in the spring, I thought. Rolled with the third group some. Got a good build. Georgia boy. I'll tell you what, Sam Pittman is doing some work in Georgia, not to overlook last year's class, but this year, they've been on so many guys, and that Cedar Grove connection has been. They had so many players in for that first camp. Christopher Paul also says, I'm biased, but I know a little football too. I love the Pitt crew, what the Pitt crew is putting together. Well, they need some success from these younger guys at linebacker. I did a midseason, and I'll go into this a little bit since you're on here, Mr. Paul. But I did a midseason projected 40th depth chart. That's kind of things we do at HawgSports. We just kind of overanalyze every single thing. And so I went into the midseason for this depth chart. And, I think that there's an opportunity for guys like Chris Paul, JT Towers, Kellen Burrell to move up the depth chart because your top four linebackers are all seniors. And technically two of those guys, Draper and Poole, could come back for a bonus season with COVID and everything. But that's four senior linebackers. And behind those guys, you got Dion Edwards, who's in his sixth year. And who else? There's one other player. Andrew Parker, I guess he's getting up there. Is he a senior this year? I think he might be a redshirt junior. But to me, it makes sense to start looking at some of these young linebackers around that point and say, you've got some time, like some, mop-up duty one way or the other. Let's get these young guys a little bit more opportunities in there because we're going to be relying on them. So if you think the guy's got a future, then I think, at the end of games, it makes more sense to play some of those younger guys versus, those older players who are, kind of rolling with the third team. That's my thoughts on it. Okay. What else we got? I think I've run through all the questions. I want to remind everybody one more time, I will be doing a walk and talk from Hoover, Alabama. I don't leave until Wednesday. Again, I'm just going for the last day of the event, last day and a half of the event, I should say, just because Sam Pittman, Arkansas. I can't ever remember when Arkansas has been last on SEC Media Days. Maybe it's happened. I just can't remember it, but I can't remember a single time where they have gone last, which, last is a day, people start kind of shuffling out. And Auburn goes last day too, and it's in Alabama, so maybe that'll offset it some. But, I always kind of duck out the last day. I stick around for maybe a couple of the coaches, maybe one of them or something, but I usually get out of there, except for one year I actually stayed an extra day. I think it was in Atlanta. I stayed an extra day just because I knew I was going to be wiped out and I wanted to just sleep in my hotel room. And it felt like 30 children on my floor that were all, friends, and they were just slamming, running through. I called hotel. I said, hey, this is ridiculous. These kids are running up and down the halls, just opening doors and letting them close on their own. So I won't do that again. But yeah, I can't remember when Arkansas has been last, but they are. So I'm going to go late. And then combined with just, I knew there would be some trickery with just all the COVID stuff. So that's just kind of how I schedule. Looking back, maybe I would have gone for the whole thing. I feel left out right now just watching on TV. I want to ask a question. So, but I'll be there. All right, 50% off right now, HawgSports.com. That breaks down to 15 cents a day, less than 15 cents a day, $1.03 a week. $53.70 for the entire year for insider Razorback coverage, recruiting, the best in the business with Danny West, Curtis Wilkerson, his basketball content. Basketball will be starting up not too much longer. We got football first, and you're going to love what we bring this year, what we've got planned. So go to HawgSports.com. There's no promo code or anything, HawgSports.com. You will be glad you did. It's a great place to get your Razorback coverage. I know I'm biased, but ask our members. Ask around. See what people think. All right, everybody. I want to thank you for joining us. We'll be back with you guys on Thursday, maybe a little bit late. We got a lot of stuff with Arkansas. I guess there's a possibility I could go Friday morning. Just depends on how things go. But I'm thinking I'm going to do the walk and talk on Thursday from Hoover. Should be a lot of fun. So be sure to join me then. All right, everybody. Thanks for your questions. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you in Hoover.